Meanwhile, a Fox News alert today, ICE action planned in 9 American cities as part of President Trump's nationwide crackdown on illegal migrants.
The acting CBP Commissioner, Mark Morgan, joins us now with an update. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning.
You served under the Obama administration, but you have said this is a crisis down at the border. You were one of the first Democrats to say that. What do you make of the situation down there now and what's happening in Congress?
Well, I think that the Vice President's visit recently this past weekend down to RGV, I hope that it shows the American people exactly what we have, and that's a full-blown crisis at the southwest border. I was actually a few of individuals who actually have proponents of bringing cameras in, bringing these additional congressional visits down there to actually show the truth of what's going down there at the southwest border.
Lindsey Graham led a Codell down there. Not one Democrat took him on the offer to go down with him. So he went down there, saw it, and he saw what we expected. Because we were down there 2 months ago at the invitation before you even got the job of Kevin McElhaney, because he wanted to show people how desperate everything has become. But no one's done anything except write one check. But we're about to hit another crisis point.
That's exactly right. And what they saw down there were two things. One is we showed that we've been asking for the supplemental for a long time from Congress. For months, they sat on their hands to be able to get the kids and families out of the Border Patrol holding facilities where they didn't belong. And what Congress showed, and I was right there with the Vice President, Senator Graham, and the other members of Codell, they showed the unbelievable effort and energy and dedication of men and women of CBP and other agencies to take care of these families and these kids. Additionally, what it showed is single adults crowded, facilities overwhelmed and crowded, what we've been saying for a long time. And I hope the American people sees this, and instead of the vitriol aimed at the men and women of CBP, they should be talking to Congress, because Congress could fix this, Brian. They know what to do to pass meaningful legislation to address the loopholes in our asylum laws, and you would see this crisis end.
Mark, we were wondering what we would see happen yesterday, because the president warned they were going to start mass roundups. And what we've seen so far is it seems like typical or routine enforcement rather than the big roundups. What is going on? Because we'd heard 2,000 migrants in the country who've been received their final deportation notices were going to be targeted, but it doesn't seem like 2,000 people were arrested.
So, Steve, I think that's a good question. So, obviously, I'm not going to talk about operational details, but I think one thing you said it was very key to the American people as well is this is what ICE does every day. So a lot of this was overhyped and over-politicized. And I think it's important, two things. One is ICE's priorities are always going to remain criminal aliens, those people that are here illegally and have committed additional crimes against American citizens. But also what we need to do to support the rule of law and maintain integrity in the system is we have to go and targeted enforcement against individuals who had due process and received a final order of removal from a judge, and they still remain here illegally. We have to go after those individuals and enforce the rule of law.
So rather than a time frame of you're going to sweep everybody up in one day, 2,000 have been targeted, and eventually ICE will do their best to go ahead and try to pick them up.
That's exactly right, Steve. Again, ICE does this every single day. They're doing their job, their statutory mandated mission to enforce the immigration law. And again, they're not, I don't even like the word raids. These are target enforcement action against people who are criminal aliens or those who have had due process and have a final order of removal and have still refuse to comply with that and remain here illegally.
Mark, you know what's interesting? People are up in arms about this today. But if you look back at the Obama administration, when you were with that administration, fiscal year 09 to fiscal year 16, there were more than 3 million people apprehended, 3 million illegals. Under President Bush, 2 million. Our president hasn't even reached the million mark yet, the current president, but yet everyone's up in arms. And listen to what President Obama said. This was 2014, right, Steve? 2014. Listen to this.
Undocumented workers broke our immigration laws, and I believe that they must be held accountable, especially those who may be dangerous. That's why over the past 6 years, deportations of criminals are up 80%. And that's why we're going to keep focusing enforcement resources on actual threats to our security.
Mark, Democrats are enraged right now. Why weren't they then?
So that should be the question for the American people. And by the way, I agree with what President Obama said in 2014.
Yeah.
I also agreed when he said it was a crisis back then, and we see a 300% increase from back then. It's a crisis today. At a lot larger.
And we're in full catch and release now because those people that you see held up are eventually just going to be let out. Will the president, have you urged the president to get Democrats together in the Oval Office and do something this week right away?
Absolutely, and we've continued. And Senator Lindsey Graham, when he was down there at the Codell, the RGV, with the vice president and the rest of the senators this past weekend, that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's working with Senator Durbin across the aisle. He's trying to pass meaningful legislation that will impact this.
Senator Lindsey Graham coming up next.